look, as a casual observer, I
You are not just a casual observer.
I haven't seen very much Pride this year.
No, this year's definitely felt very different in terms of, so obviously this month is Pride Month, but what a lot of people don't know is actual Pride celebrations typically are throughout July. And then you have some others scattered throughout the year, like Orlando is in October because it's too hot to do it in the summer.
You girls are like, we're having a birthday year, like rather than a birthday month.
I remember there was like a year, two or 3 years ago where I was doing like every Pride. I don't know how I was able to do it, but I was like, I went to like 20 Prides around the world, and it began in like February and my last one was in October, and I remember it was the Orlando one.
Can I just let insiders into a really good joke that Sean has about you? It actually makes me laugh so much.
Is it one that's been said to my face? I'm scared.
Not sure.
Okay, go on.
Sean says, every Pride you cover, you go, this is the most important Pride ever.
No, it's this. Yeah, that is. I do know about this joke. This is like a long running joke where basically in LGBT world, there's like lots of discourse around, is this the most important Pride, or is Pride still a protest? And so like it's funny because this year, like with World Pride, which is what we touched on at the beginning, which I was at 2 weeks ago.
Touch me.
I didn't touch you. I can't think of anything worse, Dorlin, as we talk about my gay identity. So basically, actually, let's just dive straight into this. So 2 weeks ago, I was at World Pride in Washington, D.C. World Pride is kind of like basically cities lobby for it. Sadiq Khan has put in a bid for it, I believe, for like 2028 or 2029 or something like that for London to host it. And it's basically like a 3-week global celebration and protest, etc. The difference between that and like a city pride would just be that it's on a much bigger scale. People travel from all over the world for it. There's like international speakers. There's an organized protest. So like I went to that when I was in DC, which was down the National Mall from the Lincoln Memorial all the way to the Capitol building.
Can you believe it was in Washington, D.C.?
I
mean, the timing of that.
It was booked, I believe, in 2022 because it was meant to be in Taiwan, but that fell through. Yeah, so that had to change. And so it was in 2022. So at that point, they believed that I think that there was going to be a democratic government in place by the time it took place, which obviously here we are now.
Kamala would have loved that coming out.
Well, she did do a little Zoom appearance. Yeah, she did do a Zoom appearance, which I thought was quite funny.
How weird, though, just to phone it in on Zoom.
Well, what's she going to do? Rock up in Washington, D.C. at the moment? I don't think
sorry,
so.
Let's be
real. No, honestly. Sorry, guys. But no, what you were kind of asking about, it doesn't feel very Pride. It didn't feel it in Washington, D.C., which was literally hosting World Pride. It's meant to be like this city takeover. There wasn't a single Pride flag up. There was nothing.
Really?
No, honestly, it was crazy. And like the people I was with, we were walking around and we were like, you would never know that there's meant to be the world's biggest LGBT celebration here in the next like 2 days. We got there, I believe, on the Wednesday. The main event was the Saturday and the Sunday. We only started seeing stuff for it on the Friday. So like this was a regular Pride, in my opinion, just like advertised as World Pride. So, but that I did speak to a lot of people there and organizers and whatnot, and it is because of Trump, and it is because unfortunately, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, funding's been cut. People are scared to do stuff because obviously it like feels less safe to them, even though DC is actually something people don't know about DC. DC has actually got the highest by like size of the city or whatever, has got the highest amount of LGBT people in the whole of the USA.
Can I just say I believe that?
Well, political gays as well, girl.
No, politics is gay. It is. Politics is populated by
is.
the gays. That's why it's always really surprising to me when someone like Trump or Vance comes out with this sort of like anti-LGBT rhetoric, because I'm like, girl, who's working in your office? Like,
listen,
you know. Not to do a Kelly Osbourne there, sorry.
Oh gosh, Lord. And I will say, DC gays are horrible people. The worst I've ever encountered. Sorry to generalize there, guys, but yeah, awful. So no, I don't know exactly where it's come from this year, but it just feels like everything is a bit more dim. And I think maybe it's just because the world is a bit more bleak at the moment and people are just feeling a bit... depressed is the wrong word, but down and out. And
somber, maybe?
Somber's a good word.
Somber?
Somber's the right word. And I think, to reference the Sean joke, the Pride as a protest thing is becoming more and more apparent this year. And like when I talk to, like, because like I say, most of the Prides are in July, I've been talking to a lot of Pride organizers over the last few weeks, and everyone is very much like, this year it's about protest. We're not even organizing as a party. You've got some of them like Pride in London, which is kind of doing business as usual. But
yeah,
things
but it
like
always does, doesn't it?
Pride in London's always a little bit like that, yeah. And then you've got like, so Trans Pride Brighton is one of the ones we're doing a lot of work with this year, and they are like, this is a protest. They're like, this is not a celebration. They're
but
like,
you
that's
know,
it.
how disappointing is that in this year 2025? I mean, what is there to protest? Do you know what I mean? I think that the conversation should have been settled.
Well, it's a shame, isn't it? But there is still a lot to protest, and I think that especially when you've got like this current government, where you know the last Labour government was known as one that like fought for gay rights, exactly. LGBT rights more generally.
They pushed through that HIV legislation quite early on.
They did a lot,
and it was like a tail end of commitments, and now there's this sort of like. I find it's actually a very juvenile conversation that we're having about LGBT because
it's completely childish.
It's very regressive.
Yeah.
It's some of the points that are being raised are totally farcical.
Yeah.
And it's definitely coming from this import of DEI crackdown that's going on in the
States.
And this sort of American evangelicism that's permeating now UK politics. And it just, again, it's so similar actually to the disabled conversation because on the ground, day to day, this is not people want.
No.
People do not want the contention
around
either of those topics.
No.
But for some reason, in the bubble, you've got a couple of people who might work for some of the broadsheets, who write commentary, who have always been violent and like to marginalise certain groups, who are now dominating the conversation in a way that doesn't actually work in the UK's communities.
No.
It's not reflective at all.
No, and it's actually, I'll be so honest over, it's so boring, and like it's something that's just been so obviously coming for the last couple of years, and it's like now it's happening. I mean, I don't know if you remember when we had Charlie Craggs on after the Supreme Court ruling, but she was like, we've been screaming this for the last like 5 years, and no one wanted to listen, and now it's finally happening. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is so shocking.
I think because, I think, so to her point, yeah, they were screaming bloody murder, and people were like, it won't ever happen.
No, it's fine. You've got the rights. Don't worry about it.
Because it is so inconceivable that you can regress. Because it's sort of like what happened with Roe v. Wade, right, in America, where you go, well, they've given abortion rights. Why would reproductive healthcare ever be altered? And then it happens, and you go, whoa, hang on a minute.
Yeah. What is so interesting about the world and where we're at now on the pride stuff and LGBT stuff and whatever, saw on television the other day, there was this debate over like, why are we even having pride flags up? And it made me laugh because I was like, do you know what this actually really is? You're just mad that you can't hate us openly anymore because of the law. That's honestly what I think it boils down to. I think when you look at all the anti-trans rhetoric, or you look at the homophobic rhetoric and all the rest of it, people are just so salty that they can't walk down the street and call you a slur anymore like they could have 50 years ago. I honestly think it's that simple. And I think that because of the way...
You call me a slur every day.
You call me one too, and that's okay. But do you know what I'm saying? I honestly think for a lot of these people, when you hear all this discourse around like, why is there a pride flag up above the bank? Why is that actually bothering you? Let's really scratch beneath the surface here, because it's literally a colourful flag. Is it because that flag symbolises that we've got rights that you didn't want us to have, or that we've got the ability now to report your ass if you want to come at me and be homophobic? Because the one thing about the UK is, even though it is flawed and the police go on, ultimately the law is on the side of the person now if you were being discriminated against. And I do believe that a lot of this discourse, when you really boil it down, that's what it comes back to. And when I do watch these TV debates, it does make me laugh, because I sometimes just think, God, if I was sat there, the shit that I'd be saying back to these people is not even funny.
But sometimes you can't even have a constructive argument.
No.
You know, like I was on a panel once on Piers Morgan, and this woman started crying about abortion. And I was just like,
the minute there's tears, babe, I don't want to hear it. Sorry.
Like, yeah. No. Like, are we going to be adults?
Oh, wait, she was crying because people are getting abortions?
Yes.
Oh, okay. No.
And I was like, please. And then she, honestly.
I remember I once had someone when I was younger, when I said I was gay, they were like, oh my God, they were like, you're going to die of HIV.
Oh.
And I was like, not really how it works, actually, but okay, yeah, you don't just wake up one day, today's the HIV. It doesn't work like that. I'm like,
the stork comes round and delivers the
virus. It just, I'm like, God, is this actually the like? And that's why sometimes when we sit here and have these conversations, and I think, oh, that was nice, like we really got a good point across there. I'm just like, it actually doesn't matter, because these people are out there and refuse to do one bit of like critical thinking or reading, or even just like reading a news piece. Because like using the HIV thing as an example, any news article you read now will very clearly state the virus can't be passed on if you're on successful medication, and that like we're on track well, we're not actually on track, but in theory, we're on track to end new cases by 2030, blah, 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 blah. I digress. But it just goes to show, and the same thing with abortion and that woman crying. These people just don't want to look at a view outside of their own.
No. And I think that so much of the narrative around Pride has been lost. And I think that the joy some commentators get out of mocking the flag, out of mocking the people being out and proud it's so miserable and disappointing. And I wonder if we sort of need to get back to the place where we're talking openly and constructively about, well, actually, you look back at the 80s and the 90s. Is pandemic strong enough? There was
for HIV, epidemic now,
epidemic.
Really, but yeah.
You look around and there are men of a certain age you will not see. All right? There is a rarity. There is a certain age bracket of men who are gay, and it's a surprise to see them.
Yeah.
And that harsh reality is because so many men died unnecessarily during that time. And I think we've really lost that point of the conversation, because when we talk about any other atrocity, we give it the grave understanding that it deserves.
Yeah.
For some reason, because Pride is a bit pink,
we
forget about this.
Yeah, I think a lot of why... Yeah, I mean, listen, I could talk about this for days on end, but let me try and succinctly say it. I think a lot of why people don't understand why Pride exists anymore, because they seem to have this like goldfish memory of the past, and they seem to think like what you were just getting at. There is a generation of gay men who literally are dead, like a whole generation. When I worked at Gay Times, there was a guy who'd worked there for 30 something years, and he lived through the AIDS epidemic and the peak of the virus in like the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Most of the Gay Times office died. He was one of the only people left from that era, because he was watching them all one by one die. And this is genuinely what we're getting. But these stories are so few and far between, because the people who lived through it, there's so few of them. So they're never sort of at the forefront of the discussion. But yeah, I do think Pride to the general public has lost its meaning, because I think people see it as like, oh, look, there's a brand driving down the street with a rainbow slapped on it, and I understand, I agree.
Lockheed Martin have got the Pride flag on the side of the bomb.
Well, yeah, this is it. And I agree that isn't, I can understand if you're not part of the community. I can see why that maybe doesn't make sense. But what I will say is, what I would encourage people to remember is, when you have these flags and things on businesses and whatnot, it's actually telling people this is a safe space. And it's actually saying, like, when you do see, like, I remember once when I was at Pride in Manchester, my colleague Holly and I saw Co-op Funeral had a place in the Pride Parade, and they had a hearse driving with rainbow flags flying off of it and all the rest of it. And it was hilarious. But I was like, do you know what? It's kind of nice, because maybe if I did have a partner or something and they died, I know that Co-op Funeral is a safe place.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, I think that
is a real tongue in cheek. That I have
it's
to
very
say,
unserious.
Your lot are very good at doing that.
Oh,
it is funny.
Absolutely. But this is also it. You have to learn to have a bit of humor about all of this stuff. And I think people forget that, like, just because we're maybe a bit more whimsical at times and can have a little bit more fun with it, doesn't mean that we're not still making a very, very serious point. I think sometimes that's what people don't get.